When my son's teacher turned out to be my husband's lover, I don't even know where to begin. It all happened so fast, it's hard to believe. My son Tom, who is just 16 years old, has always been a calm and responsible boy. He's in the 10th grade at our local school here in Seattle. In August this year, 2023, at the beginning of the school year, he first mentioned his new teacher, Lucy. She's young, about 28, and everyone said she was very open with students, always helping with the subject. Everything seemed great. But recently, everything changed. One evening, it was Monday, October 2nd, Tom came home looking very tense. He was quiet during dinner, and then with a heavy heart, he came up to me and said, "Mom, I need to talk to you." I noticed his hands trembling. There was a fear in his eyes that I couldn't ignore. And then he told me, Lucy had recently started acting very strange, becoming too close. At first, it was just subtle hints. "You're so mature for your age, I enjoy talking to you." But then she started texting him outside of school hours, asking if he wanted to meet after classes when no one was at school. I felt cold inside when I heard this. My son, my little boy, whom I always tried to protect from this cruel world, was now in such a situation. His own teacher, a person I trusted, had now turned into a threat. I felt a strong mix of anger and fear. How was I supposed to handle this? Go to the school and scream about harassment? Talk to Lucy? I didn't know where to start. But what worried me most was that my husband, Mark, initially reacted very coldly. He said, "Let me handle this. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." Instead of supporting me or at least saying something to reassure me, he just brushed the problem aside. That alarmed me. Something wasn't right here. I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep. Mark was sleeping next to me, but I didn't feel his presence like I used to. My marriage started to feel like a house of cards, ready to collapse at any moment. I felt like my entire life was falling apart before my eyes, and there was nothing I could do about it. Is it just me, or does it seem like Mark knows more than he's letting on? Why is he so confident that he can handle everything? I no longer recognize the man I've been married to for 18 years. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe I should take matters into my own hands and not wait for someone to solve my problems for me. Reddit comments, "Just a broken heart. Wow, this is so painful to read. As a mom, I can't imagine what I'd do in your place. Why is your husband so indifferent? You need to be careful. Maybe he knows something and is hiding it?" Falling apart 24, I was in a similar situation once. My son was only 14, and his teacher also started getting too friendly with him. It's important to act right away. I contacted the school and the police. It was tough, but my child is more important than anything else. Trust issues 85, stay strong. The way your husband is reacting seems very odd. If I were you, I'd be keeping a close eye on his actions. I hope you find the answers you're looking for. The days passed, but my anxiety only grew. It was Thursday, October 5th. I was sitting in the kitchen after work, staring at an empty coffee cup, unable to stop thinking about what had happened. Every time Tom came home from school, he seemed more withdrawn. His eyes no longer sparkled the way they used to. He wasn't sharing his thoughts with me like before. Lucy, who had been his favorite teacher at the beginning of the year, had now become a source of fear and disgust for him. Mark, my husband, became even stranger. On the evening of October 7th, I tried to talk to him. I told him that Tom was not only avoiding Lucy but also him, his own father. I expected support, but instead, Mark once again acted like it was no big deal. His coldness and lack of empathy filled me with horrible suspicions. What if he knows more than he's saying? His phrase, "I'll take care of it," was starting to annoy me, as if he was trying to deceive me. Every day, I felt more and more like the life I had built was falling apart. It seemed like every time I tried to hold things together, the world hit me with another blow. First, this situation with Lucy, a woman I had considered just another school teacher. Now I saw her as a threat to my son and maybe even to our family. My biggest internal struggle was figuring out who to trust. Mark, whom I had been with for 18 years, suddenly seemed like a stranger. My son, whom I had always tried to provide a peaceful and safe childhood for, was now caught in a situation that exceeded all my worst fears. I started wondering, do I really know the people I considered my family? To make matters worse, Tom started avoiding me too. He became more and more withdrawn, rarely coming out of his room after school. One evening, October 8th, I went into his room and asked if everything was okay. He just shrugged and said, "Mom, I just need some time," but how could I give him time when everything inside me was torn apart with pain and fear? I could see my son suffering, and I didn't know how to help him. Every night, I lay in bed replaying all the possible outcomes in my head. If Mark knew something, why wasn't he telling me the truth? Why had Lucy decided to interfere in our lives now? And the most important question, how can I protect my son? I felt cornered, losing control of what was happening to my family. It was as if my world was made up of broken pieces that I could no longer glue back together. Every new day brought more questions without answers. And the more I tried to find a way out, the more I realized I couldn't rely on Mark. He was no longer the man I thought I knew. Reddit comments, Lost and Searching 89, I feel your pain. And the way your husband is reacting makes me think you're on the right track with your suspicions. He's definitely hiding something, but how do you find out what? This is really tough. Stay strong, be there for Tom. Broken Trust _101, I totally understand you. I've experienced that strange feeling of trusting someone your whole life and then not recognizing that person. Maybe you should talk to someone on the outside, maybe a lawyer or a therapist for you and Tom? Finding my way 123, the fact that Tom is distancing himself is normal in this situation. It's hard for him to process what's happening. The main thing is that you're there for him, even if he doesn't want to talk right now. The next few days passed in constant tension. It was Tuesday, October 10th. I came home a little earlier than usual, around 4:30 p.m., because I wasn't feeling well. As soon as I walked into the house, I felt like something was off. Mark wasn't home, but I saw his laptop left on the kitchen table. That was strange because Mark always carried it with him, especially to work. I thought this might be my chance to finally understand what was going on. You know, I had never looked through anyone's messages before. But this time, I was overwhelmed with fear and desperation, so I opened the laptop. Within seconds, I found Mark's email. When I saw Lucy's name in his inbox, my heart sank. The latest email was sent that same day, October 10th, at 2:52 p.m. Subject, meeting this afternoon. I clicked on the email. It contained just a few simple sentences, I can't wait to see you. It all feels very risky, but you know how I like that. See you at 5 p.m., at our place. My world shattered right before my eyes. I tried to comprehend how this was even possible. Lucy, the same woman who had been preying on my son, was now having an affair with my husband? Everything became a blur in my head. Fear for Tom, betrayal by Mark, it all hit me at once. My body went numb, and I couldn't even get up from my chair. I looked at the clock, it was 4:45 p.m. There was still time. I knew this our place, it was a cafe on the outskirts of town, where Mark and I used to meet at the beginning of our relationship. Now, it had become the place of their secret meetings. I started shaking with anger and pain. How could he do this? I decided to go there. Everything inside me was screaming about betrayal, but I couldn't just sit at home. Within 10 minutes, I was in the car, heading for the cafe. Every mile was difficult. Memories of our years together with Mark, of Tom, and of how I had trusted Mark flashed through my mind. And now, in the midst of the greatest crisis, he was betraying me with our son's teacher. At 5:05 p.m., I arrived at the cafe. My heart was pounding in my chest so hard I could barely breathe. I walked in and saw them. Mark was sitting at a table with Lucy. They were so engrossed in conversation that they didn't notice me at first. I froze in place, not knowing what to do. Tears streamed down my face, and something inside me finally broke. This wasn't just betrayal, it was something more. It was the destruction of my life, my family. Mark looked at me. His face instantly turned pale. Lucy turned around, her eyes widening in surprise. No one said a word. I felt my heart tighten in pain as if it had been ripped from my chest. This was the moment I realized that our marriage was over. I needed to save myself and my son. Reddit comments, Crushed Soul 44, oh my god. I can't even imagine what you're going through. This is such a horrible betrayal, not only by your husband but also by the teacher who was supposed to protect your son. I hope you find the strength to get through this. Trust issues forever, it hurts to read this. The same person who was supposed to be your partner and support turned out to be a traitor. I've been through something similar, and it's the worst kind of pain. You're strong, don't stop. Furious Mom 33, sorry, but if I were in your shoes, I would have made a scene right there. This is not just a betrayal to you, but a danger to Tom. You need to act decisively and not give them any more chances to hurt you. I don't remember how I left the cafe that day, October 10th. Everything was a blur, as if I was floating in a thick fog. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it wanted to burst out of my chest. At first, I didn't even realize how I got back home. It was a moment of absolute collapse. Every year, every memory, everything Mark and I had been through over these 18 years suddenly became worthless. They and Lucy remained sitting at that table, not saying a word when I left. Their silence was worse than any excuse. That same evening, when I returned home, another difficult challenge awaited me. Tom was sitting on his bed, staring at the floor. I realized that he knew everything. He knew about Lucy, knew about his father. My son had been betrayed twice, first by the teacher he trusted, and now by his own father. Mom, I know that Dad is seeing her, he said without lifting his eyes. That phrase drained all the strength out of me. I sat down next to him and tried to find the words, but I had none. How could I explain to him something I didn't even understand myself? Tom continued talking, revealing more details. It turned out he had seen Mark with Lucy several times after school. That's why he had been avoiding his father, not just because of Lucy's harassment. He was afraid to tell me the truth because he didn't want me to suffer. And that broke me completely. My son, whom I had tried so hard to protect, was now carrying this heavy burden himself. Everything that happened was unbearable. I could no longer allow Mark to remain a part of our lives. My family was already destroyed. Tom deserved better than to live with someone who had so ruthlessly betrayed both of us. The next day, October 11th, I met with a lawyer. We decided to file for divorce. I couldn't leave things the way they were. I felt responsible not only for myself but for Tom as well. It was the only step I could take to protect our future. Mark came home late that night, and I no longer had any doubts. It was all decided. Mark tried to explain his behavior, but I wasn't listening anymore. It didn't matter. He had destroyed not only our marriage but also our son's trust. No words could fix that. My mind was already focused on the future, and I knew now, Tom and I had to start a new life. Now we're standing on the threshold of change. I don't yet know how things will turn out, but I'm certain of one thing: I will never let anyone hurt me or my son this deeply again. We'll move forward, and although the wounds will take time to heal, I believe we'll be able to recover. Reddit comments, Strong Single Mom, what you did took incredible strength. Divorce is a hard step, but it's definitely the right decision for you and Tom. Keep going, you're already on the right path. My son also suffered from his father's betrayal, and we both came out stronger after it. Heart in pieces, it's impossible to read this without crying. You are so brave. I went through something similar but didn't have the courage to leave right away. You made the right choice for yourself and for Tom. Time will heal the wounds, and you'll see that you did the right thing. Future looks bright. When someone betrays your trust like that, there's no point in keeping them in your life. I went through this too. Now I'm in a much better place. Stay strong, your new life is still ahead of you.